So yeah, ever since I was young, I've had a fascination with Cannonball and stuff, and following the early days of the Gumball 3000 rally, and then Alex Roy. It's the tried and tested story of just it leads into this. So I've always wanted to do a run from New York to LA. So when I was invited in 2018, but couldn't go, I then took up the opportunity to go in 2019 for the C2C Express. Obviously, this is classic cars, and we bought a right-hand drive British car over, and we'd had a lot of fun with it, a lot of success, but I've still had that sort of hunger to do a proper run in my proper car, and from the Red Bull to the Portofino and not the Goodwife Centre in Darien. So after I was acquitted and everything, my car was returned to me. It was in an absolute state. It had been stored for nearly 2.5 years outside in the south of England near the sea. So it was due a lot of work. So we had it sort of treated underneath, ice blasted, really overhauled the whole thing. And I thought, right, now's probably the time. COVID's become an old thing. It's time to finally do this, to bring my car over to do an actual run. Cannonball reunion was coming up in September 22, and I was like, this is perfect. All the Cannonball cars in one place. I can bring mine along, we can get pictures with it all, and while we're in New York, we can head to LA, and it's two birds, one stone. So we're prepping the car, we get it all ready to go on the boat, and while I drop it off at the docks, the Ukrainian war's all kicking off big time, and the shipping schedule has gone all to pot. And we just checked, just idly, it's supposed to be loaded tomorrow, and we're like, right, we'll just check. And the schedule is completely changed now, and it's JFK or Newark is the last stop instead of the second stop, and the car would be unloaded the day we're flying home. So I quickly ring my friend at the port and like, please do not put the car on the boat because it's going to get stuck in Halifax or somewhere. Just don't put it on. He says, no worries. He takes the stickers off and he parks it round the back. So that trip isn't going to happen. We do the Cannonball reunion, have a great time, make what we can of it, but we're still there going, now we've got to do it. So we start planning for the following September. We were thinking of April, but having spoken to people, we wanted to do the northern route because we'd done the southern route in the Jag, and we're like, well, let's mix it up a bit and do the northern route. And apparently April is not a good time to maybe try and get it over these hills. I think we completely underestimate the altitude that this route goes through coming from Europe. It's like driving your car at the top of Mont Blanc. It's insane. So we pushed it back to September, and we had we kind of like, look, we're on foreign plates. We're on the right-hand side of the car, and we were thinking back to the Jag of how, police kind of didn't know how to deal with us. And we're like, look, the stealth sort of strategy has worked well for a lot of people. I said, let's see how the European style kind of translates over to the American side. I've done a lot of driving across Europe, and obviously, they have different plates for different countries, but they're sort of equipped in how to deal with it. It's not odd to see a British number plate in France, say. But in America, it is a little bit more unusual. And with the experience we had in the Jag, where they're just like, I don't really know how to deal with this right now. It's foreign plates. We're two very jolly foreign British guys with foreign international driving permits. And we thought, let's kind of make as much red tape as possible to kind of go in our favour. If we're flying past someone at a high rate of speed, what can we do to sort of mitigate the chances of someone calling us in or anything? So we came up with this police sort of Interpol federal sort of weird livery. So we had this yellow and black sort of convoy exceptional, just a homage back to my Rumble days back in Europe. We thought, right, we'll sort of do it in a sort of police guise and kind of hide in plain sight, that if we come up behind someone, we can use the red lights and the siren and stuff, and they're going to pull over and just not know what it is. We must be some sort of Men in Black spooks or something, where it's like really weird number plates. And we're thinking, hopefully, if a police officer sees us, they're just going to go, I don't want to get involved, right? There's this thing in Vietnam where CIA agents would go out there and they'd say, we're on holiday. And the army would know, they're CIA, leave them alone, just don't get involved with them. And we're hoping that maybe that would translate well over here. So we wrapped the car up in in this sort of weird, I don't even know what to call it really, livery, where it had a little bit of inspiration from all over the world. It was like world police sort of livery, and we shipped the car over. It arrived, everything's going well, and we're all prepped now for our run from the Red Bull to Portofino using the northern route. Rob, before we left, was like, we can stop if we need to urinate, right? So I was like, no, we're not stopping for urinating, right? This is a Cannonball, right? We're stopping just for fuel and at the same time switch drivers and go. I'm raging about it, like, no, we're not stopping, don't be so stupid. We're getting towards Ohio, which is our first fuel stop, and I'm behind the wheel, and I've never needed to go to the toilet as much in my life, right? I'm bursting at the sides here, And I'm just like, oh my God. So we get there, Doug's waiting in the S6 to spot for us, and he's got the fuel pumps ready to go. They're filling it up. I run into the grass, relieve myself, thinking, brilliant, okay, that we're into the sink now. Get back in the car, I'm a passenger, and we're flying down now, keeping up with the S6, it's like, wow. It's the S6 with my S5, it was like a cool moment. And I'm like, I need to go again. I'm like 10 miles after the stop, and I'm like, I need to go just as bad as I did a minute ago. So I'm there with this water. We had these little, it's almost like ceremony to have these gel sort of pee bags. Like trying, but the Audi seats are sort of tipped back and gravity's just not on my side. So I'm with this like water bottle and I'm trying, and I've not done this before, and definitely not done it at 120 mile an hour. And it's just, I'm so frustrated with myself because I'm sat there covered in liquid just because it just won't stay in the bottle. And I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe this. Oh, all this planning and prep, and this is something that I thought, I'm 30. Like, why am I've got the bladder of an 80-year-old right now. I don't know if it's the nerves or the excitement or anything like that. And this bottle's a big bottle. The Americans do big bottles, and it's filling up, right? And I'm just like, oh my God. Rob's not saying a word, and he's just going like, he's like, sorry, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do is go over another bump like this. And it's just like, oh God. What a loser, what an absolute idiot. So I just fill the bottle up and I'm just like, oh, just absolutely raging about it. Messages are coming in from the spotters going, yeah, cop mile marker this. And I'm just drenched, just like, oh, this is not as cool as I thought it was. So obviously we're a European team from the UK, just preparing for this. It's different challenges you've got to overcome. Silly things like Waze, for example. There's 3 servers for Waze. There's North America, Europe, and believe it or not, Israel. So when you're trying to like plan stuff on Waze and stuff like that, if you're not in the US, you won't get any roads or any data or anything like that. Same with the countermeasures. I mean, we use a V1 with JBV1, and it's tweaked within an inch of its life, and it was amazing, right? Unbelievable. But having use of it back home in the UK, there's nothing. There's no radar. There's no police reported. Hardly anyone really uses Waze, especially where we live in the north of Wales. So there was a lot of sort of almost like simulated testing where it's like, it should work, but until we get the car over to the US, we won't know. We'd sort of planned sort of like, being realistic. We wanted to see how the European style of Cannonball would translate over here. We've done a lot in the UK and Europe and stuff, so our fuel cells, only 20 gallons. We could have had a bigger one. We thought, we'll leave it as it is. We're not trying to break the record here. We weren't naive as that, but we thought we need to have something to base our sort of, our pace on. So we'd set a 30-hour sort of benchline sort of database. We had this Google sheet which is just absolutely incredible, where it was all formulated with the historic traffic data from Google Maps, and it would give you pretty accurate entry and exit times through state lines of what you would need to be doing to keep on that pace. And then as you entered the time, it would basically change color to say, oh, you're a bit behind or you're a bit ahead. It would sort of formulate so we could kind of look back and see where we were and then push that forward. So we've done a lot of prep there, but you could do as much prep as you want back home in the UK until you get the car back here, and it's like, right, let's test everything, let's see how everything was. We arrived on the Tuesday late, we took the car out on the Wednesday, Thursday we were leaving. So any sort of niggles or anything like that, we had very little time to work it out. So we were running 2 tablets, one running sort of Google Maps and Waze, JBV1. We've got sort of a Garmin sat nav there, which is just almost for a good luck charm really. Just Garmin sat navs have been used in so many runs. The V1, and in terms of countermeasures, I did have a laser defense system on the car, but the British police chopped it into a million pieces. In the UK, you can have them, you can install them, but you cannot use them. If you're caught jamming a gun in the UK, it's go directly to prison for at least 12 months. That's perverting the course of justice. They're very astute to it. You jam a gun, they know the error codes, they're getting a warrant, they're coming straight round to your house that night. It's very serious. We don't have them back in the UK, and to be honest, it would be stupid to have them. You might as well just get caught speeding. In Europe, they're pretty strict on that sort of stuff as well. I mean, they're very strict on even radar detectors. If you're caught with a radar detector in France, they will take it out of the car and put it in front of you and watch you drive over it. They will make you drive over your radar detector. So there's a lot of things that, if we were really trying to get a good time, we would do things slightly different. But I was like, look, the car is what it is. It's more about the car for me because of what the car's been through, everything like that. So having the car just in the US after everything it's gone through was just such a surreal moment. It was absolutely incredible. But then we have to deal with that we are on the right-hand side of the car, but on the wrong side of the road, And, I've done a bit of driving around the US, but, with the C2C and a couple of hire cars, but you can't substitute the experience you have on US roads. Just things like in the UK, the roads are built to a standard, a British standard. So like exits and entries and junctions are all built to the same sort of curvature, the same sort of gradient, and the road kind of furniture is all sort of formulated and to a standard, and it's very easy wherever you're driving. Scotland, London, it's the same. That's not the same in the US, right? So it's very much trying to, you can't substitute that experience. You got to live here and have thousands and thousands of normal miles, where we're doing 60 miles around Manhattan or whatever it is in New Jersey, and now we're going to do it non-stop all the way across. So there was a little bit of a like, right, okay, we've got to be we don't know what we don't know. So that was a big kind of hurdle that I was worried about overcoming. And it was one of those ones where it's like, when we're halfway through, we'll feel a lot better about it. In the UK, you don't cannonball in the UK, right? Or even in Europe. But if you are on a rally and you're going a little bit quicker than you would and stuff like that, the style of policing in Europe and the UK, they're different between countries, but they all have that same sort of style. It's not a joke to them, right? I was stopped in Wisconsin doing 70 and a 55 in a Iowa plated truck. And when the officer came to me and realised I wasn't from here, he lit up. He was so excited. I had an Irish passport, and he was like, "Oh, we had photos on the side of the road." That's not happening. If anyone from the States come over to the UK and get caught doing that sort of speed, right, there's no pleasantries. You're not having a photo on the side of the road. It's not, it don't care who you are, you're not getting a photo. And this is just something that's blown our mind over here. It's something we can't quite grasp, is that sort of, I don't even know what the word is for it, but this, it's just so bizarre. But you're right, with the European style of stuff, this is what's been most interesting for us. It's like, you drive thousands and thousands of miles back home. How does that translate? In Europe, obviously they drive on the left, but it's like here, it's like, how does it work here? We had a few spotters for us. We had a spotter through New Jersey. And again, that's something new for us. We never really dealt with spotters back. You wouldn't find anyone to spot for you in the first place. But spotting, we're like, well, let's have the full Cannonball experience. We'll have some spotters. Again, we don't quite know how it works and sort of communicating, so we're trying different things. Worked really well through New Jersey, amazing. And then we're picking up Doug in Ohio. He's spotting for us in Ohio in the S6. So they'd meet us at the state line. We'd obviously, run together, and then we'd pull up at the fuel stop, get some photos very quickly. They filled up the car for us while I was relieving myself, and then we head off again. And then all the way through to Illinois, then Arnie picks us up spotting. So Arnie picks us up at the state line. We refuel halfway. He's there, quick some photos and everything like that, and then he shoots off. He's got to be quick because he needs to run about 10 or so miles ahead of us. So we get back on the highway, and the next thing we've got is cops coming through on the chat. So we're slowing down. Next thing we see these mountain of blue and red lights just flashing over the brow. And there's Arnie on the side of the road in his Mercedes with 2 state troopers behind him. And we're going by now, remember, in this yellow and black car that sticks out like a thumb. And as we pass, we get a message from Arnie's co-pilot saying, they know what we're doing, they know you're there, right? And I'm like, oh, we're 60 miles from Iowa, and we're like, well, we'll just push on, right? And the message comes through, they're saying there's more state troopers down the road. And I'm like, yeah, but they would say that, wouldn't they? If there was state troopers, they wouldn't tell us, would they? Hoping they'd catch us speeding. So we push on, and we thought, well, if we can get to Iowa, 60 miles away, we're through. That'll absolutely fine. We're flying down the road, holding about 125, 130, and just corner of eye, we see a red and blue flash, and there's a state trooper in the median there, just behind these trees. And we're like, holding the breath, but it doesn't move. We're coming over the brow, you can sort of see his lights, but he doesn't move. So we kind of carry on. Next thing, Arnie sends through a message, which is from that sergeant saying, I've just seen your friends go by. And he left us be. So it turns out Arnie was friends with this sergeant, and it was all good to go. But it's that, isn't it? It's the whole thing of like how you can be friendly with the police here and everything. When no one's friends with the police back home. It's not a thing. You have this very arm's length sort of thing. There's no hugging police back home. But we were held up in Illinois. They closed the road to lift in some beams or something. It was like, so they close it for 20 minutes or so, then open it, let the traffic through, then close it, put another beam across this bridge. So we were stuck in this traffic. Arnie had got through, this was before that police stop, Arnie had got through the road closure. So we were like, oh, we're sort of like, dude, there's a junction coming off here, and we're looking, is there an alternative route? We must have been there nearly 20 minutes of just and we took the junction, came through over the bridge to this little town and back on. And when we came back on, the road was still closed. So it was definitely the right move to make. We just wish we'd made it sooner. But it's one of those, you go in the first minute and then turns out the traffic starts going. We did see if we were going to use our lights and sirens to see if we could push through. So I pulled out. And it turns out it was actually a state trooper that closed the road, so it's a good job we quickly turned them off. But we found that, once we got around there and, it's morning's coming up now, there's a bit more traffic and stuff, we found that the lights and the sirens did really work quite well. So if we did come across any cars that were sort of holding that middle lane, we'd give them a flash of the reds or the oranges and they'd pull over quite quickly. And then hopefully when we passed and they saw how the car was sort of decaled up, they'd kind of go, I don't know what they are, but they're obviously need to be somewhere. So yeah, it was just incredible to see sort of the scenery change as well. It's one of those ones where you know what sort of Colorado looks like, or you know what Utah looks like, but driving it non-stop at that speed and seeing it slowly change was just like a real surreal moment. Utah was pretty eventful. We came through Utah at about 160, 165. We had, that was probably our fastest section through there in terms of speed. Came all the way back down through the mountains. Vegas traffic was quite bad. I think we've been stopped for over an hour in total. I was feeling a bit tired through sort of Colorado, so we'd sort of mixed up our rota. My co-pilot took half of my second to last stint, and then I did the last two stints. So when we got into LA, I'd been behind the wheel for 600, 700 miles or so with very minutes of sleep. I wouldn't even say I got 10 minutes of sleep. And then it felt like everyone on the 210 was trying to get to the Portofino as quick as anyone else. I've never seen anything like it. I've driven in Paris, Milan, Barcelona during rush hour, and I've never seen anything like the 210 at that time of night, right? It was insane. We blended in and we were in and out of lanes and all that sort of stuff. As we're on the foreign plates, we can blast through all these easy pass and these kind of express lanes and things. They can take pictures of the car all day. There's no way they can send the ticket, but everyone was driving like they were possessed. And after 30 hours behind the wheel, it was like, ugh. We knew we weren't going to break the 30-hour mark quite early on. I think the hold up in Illinois and Colorado was quite over the pass was quite tight. We were lucky with the weather. As we came down into LA and it's getting close, you have this new sort of adrenaline rush of like you're so close. There was a slight sort of touch of sadness on it. It'd been so long coming, and to know that the end was in sight. Not enough to turn around and go back to New York like some of those guys. I wasn't that sad about it. That's a different story. That's insane. But we came down. We came to sort of off the interstate now, and we're on the sort of, Redondo Beach, and we pretty much had green lights through. There was one that wasn't quite green, but that's where we had the lights and sirens to help us through. We pulled straight up to the Portofino. 30 hours and 22 minutes was our time, which we were, at the time it was like, wow, okay, that's not too shabby for a right-hand drive car with two foreigners in. Pull up to the Portofino. The guy at the Portofino comes out of his little booth and he's like, you can't park there. And it's like, oh man, just give me 10 minutes in it, just please. It's like 10:30 at night nearly, we'll be 10 minutes. We're not blocking the road or anything. Can't park there. And it's like, just leave me be for a minute, man. Do you know what I mean? Trying to explain to him, but I'm obviously can't understand what I'm saying. So then, like you say, this is Cannonball, isn't it? There's no fanfare there. There's no one to welcome you there. It's just a dark, car park. We get back in the car, pull up to the hotel, and then you just have this moment where you just sort of lie in bed and you're like, okay, that's just happened. And it's just a very surreal sort of moment of just relief and excitement, and you're all just a bit like, oh, could we have gone quicker? And then, you wake up the next day and you let it sort of process and decongest, and you're like, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah.
For a limited time, Glossett's best ever DIY ceramic coating deal is back. Last year, too many of you ordered it and it broke his site for a little while. But now, just the first 2,000 of you can get Glossett's $150 bottle of graphene ceramic coating for just $69.99, and you get a free $50 bottle of their ceramic detail spray, which makes the application a breeze. So click right now at the link in the description below to get yours.